Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Thank you all for being here tonight. If you would please rise, we are going to do a quick invocation and do our pledge. You would please bow your heads. Heavenly Father, as we go into Thanksgiving week, I just ask that tonight we be thankful for this club and for everything, the opportunities that it's given us for connection and community and all the opportunities to serve this community and the way we can lift it up. It's a special place, and it's one that we should all be proud of. Please keep everybody safe who's traveling over the next week, and let us be thankful tonight for the people that are here in this room. Please bless this food and this time together. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Let's see here. Guest tonight. Mr. Dean.
I got a guest. Mike Dutcher, good friend of mine, lived in the Lake Highlands forever, a long time. 2 kids, 4 grandkids, and owns and runs a company called Blue Reef Networks. They do IT services. I had to ask them what they did. IT services. Anyway, welcome, Mike. All right.
Good to see you, Mr. Dutcher.
Yep.
Javier.
Howdy. I have a guest tonight, Chance Pearson. Chance's dad, Sam, and I worked together at the A&M Research and Extension Center, gosh, about 20, 30 years ago. And Chance reminded me tonight that I've known him since he was in 3rd grade. So that kind of hurt. I'm 42. So he lives just 2 blocks away. We're connected to Facebook. Anyway, I've been trying to get him to come and join us, and he's here tonight.
Chance, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
A couple quick announcements. The biggest thing we have coming up, the Lake Highlands Junior Women's League Light Up the Highlands event is coming up on the 27th. There was a note in the newsletter today. They are looking for, we don't need too many, but they are looking for 6 to 8 volunteers to show up and help them out with their event that day. Obviously, they show up every single year at Oktoberfest and help us sell tickets for that event. And we would like to certainly have Exchange Club show up and be able to support those folks. So if you are going to be around on the 27th, please check that Sign Up Genius and yeah, come on, we need 6 or 8. Yes, sir.
And they also need 1 generator, and it would make my life better at home if anyone could help out with 1 generator.
And 1 generator.
Yeah, see me.
10-4. Thank you to everybody who went out to PAX for LH on yesterday. It sounds like it was a successful event. I think everything went smoothly from everything that I've heard. And I think the biggest thing is at this point that the donation window is still open for that. I think they're going to leave it open until Thanksgiving. So anybody who didn't get a chance to donate yet, you still have an opportunity to support that event and make sure that it's not coming out of 1 or 2 people's pockets to float the whole thing. So if you would please consider giving to that, that would be awesome. Christmas party is coming up on December the 15th. Please remember to RSVP. I think they're trying to get a head count for food, Nathan's Open Bar, etc. We got to be able to budget and figure out how much money we got in the bank. Diapers, yes, and there will be notes about it, but as usual, we are going to be giving diapers out to Family Compass, so please make sure we've got big boxes of diapers on the way.
Big box, 144, 192 count. Let's not do the
Costco.
Yeah. Let's not do the 45. Let's do the 145, 198. Big box.
Challenge thrown down. Hit the big box. Last announcement on the calendar upcoming 12/2. We are going to be actually meeting instead of here. We will be at the high school. We're going to be doing a winter sports preview. We're going to have some of the coaches for basketball and wrestling and some of the other sports come up. And, you know, the basketball team's been, if y'all didn't catch them last year, they were awesome last year. And Trey's coming back. And if you haven't, you know, met him or heard about him yet, he's a stud. And he's one of the top recruits in the nation. So it should be a fun time, but please make sure you note that on 12/2 we will be up at the high school. We will not be here at the KC. Don't want that to get lost in the shuffle. Anything else calendar-wise? No?
No meeting next week.
Obviously, yes, no meeting next week with Thanksgiving. We hope you all enjoy it and travel safe if you travel. Mr. Trevone, you want to come up and introduce our speaker tonight?
You're doing great, Nathan.
Thank you for the applause. Good evening, Lake Highlands.
Good evening, Nathan.
How we doing?
Great.
We're still waiting for half of our presenters tonight, our guest speakers, but he's stuck in traffic. 75 and 635 is in the parking lot, from what I understand, but he'll be here shortly. We got his maker's mark on the rocks ready to go. But I'm really excited about tonight's program. As many of you know, I work in cybersecurity. I think it's the best industry to be in, and as most of you know, it's probably one of the most important things you guys have to worry about in your business. I'm also really excited about the guest speakers that are joining us tonight. I not only work with them professionally, but they're also friends of the club. Brian Lester grew up with, where are they at? Patrick Brown and Justin Bono in Paris, Texas. And Brian and Cameron Joyce will be here in just a second, have been at many of our fundraising events, so they can share a little bit about that too. A little plug about White Rock Cybersecurity, that's the company I work for. Just want to make this relevant to why we're doing cybersecurity. Yeah. So, if you guys know Jamie Range, club member, he founded White Rock Cybersecurity 10 years ago. And I like to say that we help clients navigate their cybersecurity journey. What that kind of means is we help clients acquire the tools and technology to prevent and respond to cyber attacks. And as you guys, if you read the news, you see that cyber attacks are happening all the time. Jamie wanted to be here tonight because he wanted to see Brian and Cameron talk, but he was double booked. He's currently in the Bahamas at a partner conference. So rough life for him. With that, I would like to invite Brian Lester to come up and get things kicked off. So Brian is a senior enterprise account manager at Artic Wolf, which is one of our partners at White Rock Cybersecurity. And he's going to share a little bit about kind of what they do, the current threat landscape, and then share some funny stories and maybe tie in Patrick Brown a little bit to the presentation.
So we got two mics here. We can roam and ask questions, and we will do that. So this conversation will quickly, you'll start thinking about your own personal life, and we do this quite a bit as my SE walks in right there. There he is. We do this conversation quite a bit. We did one about a month and a half ago for 25 CEOs across DFW, and we spend an hour talking business, talking how cybersecurity is impacting their business. And the first question we get is, "Can you tell me what my daughter's doing online?" That was the first question we got. So you'll start thinking the same thing. But cybersecurity, obviously, it's all about where we spend our time and how we, interface and communicate with individuals. So you guys are all Dallas County. You have probably been impacted just this week. The Dallas County Appraisal District was hacked probably a year ago, and the threat actors surfaced that ransomware software. Yeah. Okay. Got it. Okay. Got it. Tell me that one more time, and I'll forget. And so the ransom payload was dropped on November the 8th. The threat actor most likely has been in that environment for 6 to 18 months. What they do is they spend time learning about the environment, learning of communications. Where is the chain of command for cutting payroll checks, for paying vendors? What do those processes look like? What is the timing that is most impactful to this business so that the ransom is most likely to be paid or accepted? So these are the things that we're going to get into, but these are real life scenarios, and cybersecurity has changed rapidly. So and we'll cover all that tonight. But then Cameron spent his first formative years in New York. One of his first jobs as a teen was hacking Capital One and was paid to do that. So he'll talk a little about that, but we're prepared to answer some questions also on the personal side. It's a free-for-all tonight as far as questions. Cameron is pretty technical. He is somewhat of an ethical hacker, so to speak, in his previous years. He was actually a customer of mine, and then I hired him onto the IT side, or to the vendor manufacturing side of IT here in the past 5 years. So had to get to know him as a customer, and then and now as a friend and a colleague. First of all, I'm Brian Lester. Lived in Lake Highlands for several years. Lived in Oak Highlands Estates. Appreciate what you guys do, and have a really good understanding of the time you guys spend. I see it with Patrick and Justin and Nathan and James. I see that weekly, and so I appreciate what you guys do. I've dropped many thousands of dollars as Patrick and Justin have given me drinks, and I show up at some auction, and all of a sudden I've got all this property that I got to go spend time at. So I enjoy all those activities, and from Jack Ingram just a few months ago to my first Lake Highlands Exchange experiences. So Cameron has been at several of those as well. So we're excited about speaking with you guys today. Obviously, we are affiliated with White Rock, and the relationship we have with them is they help distribute our product and help bring us to market. So we are a Minnesota-based company. Artic Wolf is founded in 2012. Our founders were in cybersecurity before that. We've got 2,000 plus employees, 3,500 plus customers. Personally, Cameron and I, DFW Airport is one of our customers. We provide all the cybersecurity for DFW Airport all the way to the Dallas Mavericks, so and everywhere in between. Those are high-profile companies, and if they have a breach, their name ends up in the paper. So yeah, you would expect them to want to address cybersecurity to a degree. But I've also got a little construction company in Irving that their CFO had cut 4 $60,000 checks 4 months in a row to a wrong bank account because this email kept coming to him, and that was a little bitty $150 million concrete company that was just losing $60,000 a month through illicit wire transfers. And these were email communications that were all pretty legit internally, but that was a external threat that had gained access to their email systems and was doing that. That's what we pick up on as a company. So Artic Wolf does that. We provide security operations for organizations from 20 employees all the way up to 60, 100, 1,000 employee entities. For example, little companies struggle finding talent, so that's what we do. We provide expertise. We hire military-grade individuals that spend 15 years doing cyber warfare in the Air Force. One of our facilities in San Antonio, right next to an Air Force facility. Those people, leave the public service, want to move into the private sector. They come to work for companies like Artic Wolf. We locate our security operations centers is how we monitor what's going on in the world and our customers. We locate those throughout the United States, throughout the world really, next to locations that have those expertise. One of them being San Antonio that I mentioned. UTSA has a great cybersecurity training program, education program, so that's one of the benefits as well. Provo, Utah, Minnesota, a couple of locations in Canada that has a strong cybersecurity presence as well. So that's what we do, and protecting those organizations. But from little to big, it's a struggle finding the individuals that provide the expertise. So currently today, there's 46,000 open security positions in the state of Texas. So if you go to Indeed or Glassdoor or Monster or whatever, the applications, there's 46,000 openings. They can't fill talent. So because this is a somewhat new market, you started hearing about cybersecurity, maybe 3-5 years ago. So if you have children, grandchildren, that absolutely is a career that needs to be at least explored because it will only get more and more profitable for the threat actors. Therefore, we have to have talent that addresses that. And obviously, the military does a good job of, is where we get most of our talent, but then from the private sector as well. But those anywhere in between is all facing the same situation, from little to small. So they lean on organizations like Artic Wolf that can provide that expertise and that can build out that infrastructure and build out the mechanisms and the processes for delivering answers. All we do as a company is we monitor logs. Logs are just it's the communication from all of the devices that we use day to day. So from servers, but from our phones, to a drone, to the runway lights at DFW, to the badge scanner at a manufacturing facility. Anything that's connected to the internet has an IP address. If it has an IP address, it produces a log. We monitor that log. We look for consistencies, or in most cases inconsistencies, and start to correlate that and give us, and we help in real time tell a company that you've got an issue. Usually it's multiple devices that are impacted, and we start to correlate that. Our commitment to our customers is 5 minutes. So we see a situation arise within 5. We put some context around that, and we're able to completely eliminate that within 30 minutes. So Dallas County Appraisal District is not a customer. They had a threat actor this will all surface in the next few weeks, and I was looking at Reddit before, because Reddit and things like that know before anybody. And it's still not out there what the real situation is, but most likely the threat actor was in there 6 to 18 months ago. We would have picked up on that in 30 minutes. Well, while that threat actor's there, all they're doing is sitting there learning about the environment. They're watching all the communications of all the employees. Then on the day that they're ready to drop the payload, that's when it hits and everything goes down. Now they've got, for a couple of reasons, they've got the organization in a really tight spot. So now there's a ransom being negotiated with some North Korean or somebody in Russia that we're not all privy to right now, that the FBI is handling. We do that. We have guys that can handle negotiations with North Koreans, with Eastern Europeans, with whoever is guys here in the States that are holding companies ransom. But what's happening, they'll negotiate that. Well, they also are dropping these other payloads that they haven't initiated yet. So as soon as DCAD pays the ransom, 6 months later, they'll do it to them again. And now, because unless they really do a good job of forensics and cleaning it up, this will go on and on. So this has been since November the 8th, and I was talking to a few guys that tried to get on the website. It's still down. It could be down for months. Knowing what the public entities spend on cybersecurity, it could be bad. Well, if this rolls into January when all of our taxes are due, that's could be a major issue.
Does that mean I don't have to pay my taxes in January?
That is not what we just
said. He's recording this, so that's not what we're talking about. But I was thinking, if it's not a local guy, or he would have dropped this on January the 24th. Because they're all due, January the 31st. So it's not a local guy that did this. That would have put some major pain when we're all trying to process our payments online. But that is the severity that, that's an inconvenience for us all. Uber has a CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, that right now is going to jail for cybersecurity related to what happened at Uber. So it's gotten to this degree where if you have an officer or a CEO or CFO at your organization, this is the level of severity it's gotten to. Now, the CISO at Uber is going to jail for perjury, but it's related to the pressure he was getting from the CEO and CFO not to admit to certain insufficiencies that they had related to their cybersecurity posture, and so it's all, it was the pressure that he was getting, and he committed perjury, and that's why he's going to jail, but it's all back to the breach that they had. I was breached at T-Mobile, so I'm a T-Mobile customer, and all my data was exposed related to that. I don't think, social security numbers, but credit card information, and all my address and personal information. So I emailed the T-Mobile CFO, or the CEO, I emailed him and said, hey, I was at AT&T for 15 years, been with you for 2 years, never at AT&T was my data exposed, been with you 2 years, yada, yada. And by the way, I looked at your website and you have 87 open security positions on your website. Yeah, you can just click on careers at any company and find what the job postings are. So I just did that, typed in cybersecurity, 87 openings all across the world. I said, to me, it doesn't seem like you're taking cybersecurity seriously, because now my data is exposed, the other 35 million people's data is exposed. And he wrote me back, and we chatted back and forth about it. But it doesn't matter if you're big or small. Everybody has the same problem. There's so much money for the threat actors, and I'll quit labeling certain nation states. There's so much money for the threat actors. This will continue to become more and more profitable. One of the most profitable things is our school district. So I know you guys are tied back to Lake Highlands School District, but there's a website you can click on. There have been 80 breaches here in the North Texas area related just to school districts. Allen ISD wouldn't pay the ransom, so that the actor went and ransomed every individual parent that they had student information on. So they emailed the individual parents, since Allen wouldn't pay the ransom. And you're like, well, what's the big deal about that? Well, what does the school district have on your kid or on a student? They got behavioral information. They've got all the medicines that they take. They've got obviously all of their social security numbers. And an 8-year-old social security number is pretty valuable, because that social security number will not be really put into use for 13 to 20 years. That's a lot of identities you can create using a 6-year-old or 7-year-old social security number. So that social security number is valuable. Well, Allen ISD has 80,000, 100,000 of those, including all the previous students that attended there. So these are entities that don't have the money to protect themselves, that are being threatened, and that's where companies like us come in and provide that coverage. So we do support several school districts, a lot of municipalities here in town. I mentioned airports and NBA teams, but all of them are facing the same issue, but so are you as an individual. If your data is out there exposed within any of these entities, then your data is what they're after, because that's what's interesting and valuable to them. And that's kind of what we're going to get into. We're going to keep it as lighthearted as we can. It is an important topic. We deal with it every day, so we've spoken to 1,000 companies here in just the Dallas-Fort Worth area over the past couple of years. So we got some funny stories, some sad stories, some interesting topics, but that will initiate a few questions, and we're happy to take those. So I'm going to kick it to Cameron. We'll get technical, and I'll elevate him back up a level or two as you guys start to see smoke coming out of your ears, or just kind of go a blank stare. So just keep that in mind. Acronyms. So keep that in mind. But we also have him here. He started professionally setting in Panera.
Legally, I can't.
Okay. Setting in retail locations and just asking you, and if he had got here on time tonight, we were going to set up a Wi-Fi hotspot that was just open and see how many of you access the hotspot just because you needed some quick connection or whatever, and then the data that we could have just pulled simply from that. But that's kind of where he started, but he was paid to do that to help certain companies strengthen the posture of their employees. Obviously, the employees are the biggest weakness. If we can unplug all the employees, that would solve all the problem. That can't be done. So we've got to develop and build processes around that so that we can help monitor what we're all doing day to day. My last comment. One of the questions we asked each one of our first customers, we had 4 of them today. I asked them, so how many people do you have in your security team or your security environment? And usually most companies that have 500 employees have 1. They've got 1,000 employees, they've maybe got 2. And T-Mobile had hundreds. DFW has close to 50, and they still couldn't get it done. That's why they called us and pay us north of $600,000 a year to help monitor their environment. They still couldn't get the job done, even with 50 at DFW. But the problem related to that is just not having that expertise and not being able to stay ahead, because what we do, we don't even know what the threat is tomorrow that the threat actor, the nation state or whatever is going to deploy. It could be already in all of our water systems. It could be in our energy grids. We don't even know it yet until it's dropped, and you got to be able to respond to it. And We do have a lot of smart individuals. We hire a lot of people that have seen a lot of difficult situations, and we're hopefully there to help protect you guys. To give you an idea, we've received $900 million in funding just in the past 5 years. We have a $6 billion valuation as a company. We're one of the largest security operations people, so it's not a tool. I'm putting people in place to help a company, an organization address their security needs. So hopefully we can answer some questions in the amount of time we have tonight. So, Cameron, I'll kick it to you. I'm going to take this mic, hang out the back of the room, and if you have questions, we'll mic everybody up if that's okay.
All right, let's hold it at the top. Hold it at the top. All right, let's do that. So everybody, my name is Cameron Joyce. I'm a senior solutions architect here at Artic Wolf. Brian and I have been working together for about 5 years now. He probably told you I was a customer. I started my security career when I was a teenager. So I started the way that every unsupervised 14-year-old boy on the internet starts, which is just being curious, right? And thankfully, my internet activity was not what you think it is. And I started learning about security because I was interested in pranking my friends. And pranking my friends became, I wonder if we could get free Wi-Fi, right? Because in the early 2000s, Wi-Fi was in public, something that you still generally had to pay for. Being a 14, 15-year-old kid, didn't have any money, but I did have a laptop. And so learning how to hack Wi-Fi was a good way to start. That became, I wonder if I could change my grades. The answer is you can. And then that started to develop in 2008 into me realizing that I probably needed to get onto the right side of cybersecurity because I watched a lot of very close friends go to federal prison. So people that I knew for years, who I only knew by their online handle. I got to know their names and their faces because I got to watch federal indictments come down. So made a life change, and that obviously was a very good thing. But let's get into a little bit of stats and stories, right? Because that's sales is all about stats and stories, and I've got some pretty good stories. So 2022. 2022 has been kind of an interesting year for cybersecurity. 2020 and 2021 had a lot better of stories on enterprise breaches. 2022 has been really focused on going after individual people. We've seen almost $1 billion of cryptocurrency be stolen just this year alone. For those of you who are interested in crypto and NFTs and that whole Web3 world, there's a good way to do it, but that good, safe way to do those things requires a lot of technical talent. Most people don't have that, so there are a lot of services like, for instance, Crypto.com or Ronin Crypto that provide an easy way for the average person who's got an American Express card and a brain to start investing in cryptocurrencies and NFT. The problem is that because these currencies are decentralized, because they're not tied back to real people, and because they're not insured by any government or any third-party agency, if that money gets stolen, it's gone. So I always tell people who are getting into that, make sure that this is the same money you would play at the roulette or the blackjack table. Just set it on fire, because it might turn into something real, it might not. The International Red Cross was hacked. 500,000 personally identifiable information records as well as personal health records were stolen. And the problem when we think about the International Red Cross is that these records are usually of refugees. These are people that are running from governments, they're running from warlords and armies and things like that. And now an attacker has where they are in the camps and where these people are in the world being resettled. So that's a problem. Appointment setting services getting hacked, 3 million government IDs. If I'm someone who is looking to build an identity, which I've had to do before, having a government ID is a great way to start that. I can validate a lot of what I already know about you. Plus I have a document that all I gotta do is throw my own picture on it and get my card press out, and I've got a valid Texas driver's license that's got your information but my face on it. Brian mentioned, young kids, SSNs being really valuable. It is. In the black hat world, when we try to build an identity and we're looking to steal a social security number, children under 10 are what we go after. More specifically, what we try to find, and this is going to be a little messed up, but it's the realities of the world. We scour hospital records and we look for infants that were delivered, lived long enough to get a Social Security number assigned, and then didn't go home from the hospital. I know that I can use that Social Security number for about 20 years without it getting recycled. And the parents will never know because they're not going to have kids that go off to college and apply for credit and find out that someone's been using their Social Security number for years. So that's why that personal information is so valuable to hackers, because we need it to be able to create alternative identities for various reasons. And then, get, send, go. I like to bring up, last year I talked a lot about the Twitch hack. I've talked a lot about the Sony hack in the past, and Get, Send, Go is this year's version of that. They were attacked because the group of hackers, they didn't want money, they didn't want the information, all they wanted to do is they wanted to expose the donor list from Get, Send, Go. They had different views than the people and the campaigns and the charities that Get, Send, Go was setting up. So Get, Send, Go is a little bit more of a right-wing version of GoFundMe. And the hacking group decided that they didn't like what Get, Send, Go was helping to sustain, and so they wanted to expose the donor records to essentially shame people publicly about donating to certain campaigns. This is something that I'm going to talk about later when we talk about privacy online and why it is important that you set your Facebook to private, you don't post certain things online. In 2022, this is unfortunately a time in our lives when regardless of who you voted for, regardless of what your personal views on things are, we're very polarized. And when you are a more prominent figure in your company, or even if you're running for local office or anything like that, people will go after you just for the lulz. And again, they're not going to ask for money, they're not going to ask for anything, they're just going to enjoy watching you squirm. So that is something I like to bring up. The last one, this happened last year, but I keep bringing it up because I hate the federal government, and this is, big 2A guy, big distrust of the Fed. But Microsoft has changed. So Microsoft had a zero-day vulnerability, and what a zero-day means, when you hear that, and a lot of people always ask what a zero-day means, it means that from the time they found out about this vulnerability, it has been 0 days since they've known about it. In the security world, those of us who are a white hat, we generally will let the software manufacturer know, hey, I found a vulnerability in your product, here's what you need to do to fix it. And then we disclose to the public to basically say, hey, Microsoft has an issue, but they're going to release a patch, so install the patch and you're going to be fine. A 0 day is basically, hey, we know that there's a new vulnerability, there's a toolkit out to be able to exploit that vulnerability. Microsoft has had no time to even look at it to figure out what they need to do. There's no patch, there's no remediation. The FBI decided that this vulnerability, they gave everybody about 2 months to get the patch in place that Microsoft put out. They did not, they found that in the US, only about 30% of the affected servers, and there's a lot of online tools that we can use to look at what public-facing infrastructure there is and the associated vulnerabilities with it, so I don't even have to go scan. I can literally log into a website, pick a target, and go. And they used that tool to find that only about 30% of the affected servers had been patched. They went to the Supreme Court. They did not go to FISA. They openly went to the Supreme Court. They said, we have a serious issue. We need to hack and patch. In April of 2021, a federal law enforcement agency, for the first time in the history of this country, was given permission to exploit private enterprise networks and modify systems. For those of you in this room that have an Esquire behind your name, you know that the whole point of the law is all about, it's all about case law. It's all about things that have already happened. It's all about precedents. There's that, we know from Snowden, we know from other sources, that the United States spies on our own people. We know that there's intercepts. We know that there's data collection. Now we have precedents in the open that the FBI has done this before. So it's a very real issue. It's a very strong concern, and so I like to talk about it a lot. We're not going to go through we're not going to go through this whole slide, but the thing to know about this is that, you know, the FBI telling me that they, in 2021, they saw 951% more investigations into phishing and malware than they have in the previous year. The FBI does not get involved in things unless there's a legitimate chance that they're actually going to be able to perform an arrest. In a lot of cases, they kind of let you just say, you know, hey, you know, deal with it with your insurance, deal with it with a cyber insurance or a cybersecurity company. We can't really look beyond the borders of this country, so it's on you. And they're getting a lot more involved. So kind of an interesting statistic there. And then when we talk to about the Verizon breach report, right, the two main things that we see are human factors that lead to a breach. From an IT perspective, we look at human factors as, you know, Brian in accounting who can't stop clicking every link in every email or every attachment. Doesn't care, just clicks it and opens it up and, oh shoot, I got a virus again, right? Or, you know, it's Nathan in sales who, for whatever reason, just wants to give everyone his password or wants to tell everyone what the security code to the front door is, right? That's what we think about human factors. The reality is, and what Verizon tells us, is that IT is actually the bigger human factor. We do things like, hey, you know, the system is down, and we troubleshoot it, and we put in a temporary fix, and there's nothing more permanent than a temporary fix. And that temporary fix has a vulnerable configuration in it. But the system is now working, so we don't go back, we don't look at it. It'll be things like, hey, you're setting up something new. You know, you're setting up something for the first time, you have no experience with it, you're following the best practices guide, you're following the documentation, you don't realize that you created a vulnerability, right? So that's human factors, and then credentials is number two, right? Having credentials, and there's a lot of different ways we can steal credentials. I'm going to talk about a few of them tonight, but having credentials, you know, open and available to hackers is kind of the second most common way that we get in there. The other thing that I like to talk about with IT folks, because they don't think about this, right? Y'all are business folks, you run successful companies, you understand the concept of business reputation. You understand the concept of diligence during, you know, during B2B contracts and during RFPs and things like that. IT thinks about the cost of a breach associated with the consultants I had to hire. We think about the business continuity plan and the Azure or AWS bill. We think about the software we had to buy to clean up the mess. We don't think about what this is going to do to our existing contracts. We don't think about givebacks. We don't think about penalties. We don't think about the fact that in a lot of cases when you do B2B diligence, one of the questions that gets asked is, have you had a breach in the last 36 months? Well, if you click yes, that's a really quick way for someone who's got to go through 100 proposals to just throw yours out the door. You might have had the best one. It's going to get thrown out the door because you failed diligence, right? We don't think about that. We don't think about brand reputation, right? The example that I use for IT people, and especially since we're coming into Christmas here, if me and my friends backed a truck into a Backendorf's, right? We break through that front gate, we steal all the jewelry in the place, everybody's going to say, man, that sucks. But they know that insurance is going to make them whole. They're going to get new inventory, and come Black Friday, right, you're in there shopping for jewelry for your wife for Christmas. If they lost their customer database, and especially that purchase history, especially if maybe you were buying jewelry for someone you shouldn't have been buying jewelry for, you're not going to go back to Backendorf's, right? So that's the thing that I try to make people in IT understand, is that a breach could mean the end of a company, and it has more than once. A perfect example of that is Mandiant. If you remember the SolarWinds breach, which you may not, but it was pretty public news, their security company, FireEye, was the reason that they got breached. The attackers went after FireEye first. They got some tools. They then pivoted into SolarWinds network. FireEye ended up having to rebrand. They're actually a Dallas-based company, which is funny. But they ended up having to rebrand to Mandiant, and then they were acquired by Google for a lot less than they should have been. All because of brand reputation. So again, things you guys understand, but things that IT people don't, and we have to help them understand. The last thing that I like to drive home, and this is both for IT people and you, antivirus is not good enough. I'm not going to go through all the acronyms on this slide because Brian told me I couldn't, But what you need to know is that these are the top 18 antivirus companies right now, according to Gartner, which is an industry analyst firm. These are the antivirus softwares that your companies pay tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to put on your computer. And the problem that you'll find is that it is not a cure-all. Even at home, your antivirus on your home computer is not a cure-all. Security is about layers, it's about monitoring, and so just saying, hey, you know, we just bought this really snazzy new AV, it's not going to fix all your problems. So let's get into some stories. Brian wanted to have me talk about some email monitoring, some illegal email monitoring. And the thing that I want to leave you with is that IT in most organizations is not reading your email. We have so many better things to do with our time than read your email. But I will tell you a story about when I was doing pen testing about a time that a guy was reading email. This was back again when I was in New York, and we had a call come in from one of the larger law firms in the area. And they called our sales guy and they said, hey, our IT guy, our one IT guy, we think he's reading our emails, and we're not quite sure what to do about that. And so the sales guy called me into the office. He's like, I don't have any idea how to handle this call. I was like, all right, let's talk to these guys. And I was like, why? You know, firstly, why do you think he's reading emails? And they were like, well, there's so many things that he knows about that there's no possible way that he could have known about unless he was reading our emails, that we got a hunch. And I was like, okay, if you think that's the case, let's meet for lunch. We can't meet in your office, and we can't meet at our office in case he's bugging your phones too. So let's meet for lunch somewhere. Let's talk about this. So we talk about it. We decide that hey, there's no way that this guy's going to let us into the network. Even if he did, he's going to be watching our accounts. We can't have that. So let's do a penetration test. Let's hack into your network, and then we'll get all the evidence you need to determine whether or not this guy is doing what you think he's doing. And if he's doing what you think he's doing, then that'll give you everything you need to terminate him. And they're like, great, sounds good. So it takes us about 2 days to hack into the network. Unfortunately, this guy was so focused on reading their emails that he forgot to do the rest of his job. It wasn't very hard. We looked around, and you'll see some of the bullets up there on common ways that people monitor emails. This guy was kind of smart. There was a way in older versions of Microsoft Exchange that an administrator could log into a mailbox through Outlook Web Access without needing to do a privilege escalation, without needing to add delegation rights, without needing to do anything else. And that's how he was getting into everybody's mailboxes. So a little smarter than the average bear, but we were able to determine that pretty quickly. The second thing that we found is that this guy had centralized logging for all of their instant messages. So all the company IM, this dude was logging. And again, that's not an uncommon thing, especially for things like e-discovery and litigation, right? Logging all electronic communication within the company is pretty normal. And the alerts that he set up were a little bit interesting. Usually, the alerts that get set up inside of instant message logging is for things like, we want to see 16-digit numbers, which are credit cards. We want to see 9-digit numbers, which are Social Security. We want to see, common phrases about the company or common phrases about the industry, right? We're looking to protect the company, right? That's what we set up when we set up this logging. Well, this guy had things like his name. This guy had things like a certain paralegal's name followed by boyfriend. So this guy, he was creeping on all the girls. He was reading everybody's everything. He knew a lot more than he should. And so after about 30 days, we had everything we needed, and we ended up presenting both all the evidence they needed to fire this guy, which they did. They walked him out. They had cops meet them in the lobby. They trespassed him, and then there was a suit, and I got to go buy a black suit for the first time and go testify, which was cool. But the other thing that we were able to do is show a lot of deficiencies in their network, and then not only help them fix that, but we came in as their general IT company for a couple weeks until they could put new people in place. So happy ending. A more recent version of this story, Brian and I were working a deal back in 2019 with a different reseller partner, not White Rock. And we were in a meeting. It was the end of a sales cycle, and we asked the guy what the question that every good salesperson should ask, which is, do we know for sure that this deal is coming in? And the guy said, absolutely, it's coming in. And we're like, you sure it's coming in? He's like, no, the CFO told the CEO, we have budget, it's approved, it's all good, I'm just waiting for the CEO to get back to me. And we're like, okay, was that in a meeting? How do you know? And like, can we talk to the CFO? What's going on? He's like, no, I read their email. We're like, wait, you do what? And he's like, no, I read, CFO, CEO, all the executive leadership. I got to keep tabs on what's going on in this place. And we're like, so we leave that meeting, and ultimately we made a decision to disclose to their leadership that he had provided us that information. At the cost of potentially a sale, we decided that was, the ethics of disclosure were more important than what would have been a very nice commission check. And they actually were very, very thankful, and again, found that guy, in fact, was reading email, and they fired him over it. We later got the deal and actually had a better relationship because they liked our ethics. So the question to you guys is, of course, how can you tell if somebody is reading your email? In your Outlook, there's 2 settings you can look for. One is under mailbox delegation. So if you've ever shared your calendar with somebody, you can see delegation rights to see who's got access to your mailbox, as well as who's got access to send on behalf of your mailbox. So it's a decent thing for you to go check that every once in a while, make sure no one's added themselves. The other thing that we see a lot is a mail flow. Basically, there is in Outlook, again, if you're familiar with your rules in Outlook, so if you've ever clicked an email, right-clicked it, and said, create rule based on this, and then it brings you through that whole wizard, there's a set of rules in Outlook. One of the things that we see at Artic Wolf a lot, one of our top indications of compromise, in fact, it was 47% of all the investigations that we saw in 2021 were around mail flow rules. And it was attackers that had gotten into the network, and they started forwarding all of that user's email to an external box. So even if they lost access to the email account, they would still get the emails in an external box. So that's something that you guys can take a look at to make sure, hey, I don't have any mail flow rules that are sending to external. A lot of organizations already limit that because it's an acceptable use violation. It's an HR problem, so a lot of us administratively disable that ability to begin with. But for those that are smaller and don't, it's something to check on, right? So let's talk about, there we go. Let's talk about why we care about public Wi-Fi. So you've probably heard a few times your IT department or people in security harp on why is it so important that I connect to a VPN. If I'm on public Wi-Fi, I have to connect to a VPN, And you're like, that's a pain in the ass, and I just want to check my email. Okay. It is because of that little device in the bottom left-hand corner. That is called a Wi-Fi pineapple. That is a Gen 1 that I have that's signed by Derek Kitchen and Shannon Morris, who are the original developers of that. But what that device does is a few things. One is it's got a piece of software on it called Yasiger. For those, so for those teaching, Yasiger means the yes man. And what happens when you pull out your phone and your phone is in a new location and you have your Wi-Fi enabled, it sends what's called a beacon packet. What a beacon packet does is basically asks, are any of the wireless networks I've ever known in this room right now? Okay? It's why when you go home, your phone automatically connects. It's why when you're in the office, it automatically connects. It's a convenience thing, right? So what Yasiger does is we violate the inherent trust of a beacon packet, and we say, yes, I am that network, okay? And so it allows your device to automatically connect to my hotspot without you having to do anything, okay? There's some other packages that we can throw on there. We can throw things like Armitage and Metasploit, which are exploitation tools. We can throw Meterpreter on there, which is a tool that automatically grants reverse shells. We can use Nessus, right? So the reason that this tool is so dangerous is because your phone will automatically connect to it, and someone with a basic understanding of how to download software off the internet and install it on a Raspberry Pi now has access to this. Okay? A story about how I used this in a real-world example. Another pen test back in New York, and we were up against this company, and they had really good external security. We had 60 days to gain access, and I had burned like 45 of those 60 trying to get something. From the outside, we couldn't get anything. We tried to get on site and put a device on site. They had a bulldog security guy that we just could not get by. We tried to phish them. Their employees were really good at not responding to that. We tried to go in as salespeople to drop a device in a conference room. They wanted to do all of our meetings off-site. Like, these guys were really good. I was like, oh, man, this first one I'm gonna have to fail. This sucks. I don't want to do this. Well, when we did our site survey, so when we went on site to kind of see, hey, can we just break into the office? We noticed that there was kind of a coffee shop, deli kind of setup in this office park. And you know, we didn't think about it at the time, but later I was like, all right, Hail Mary, let's go sit in there one day. Let's see kind of who's in there. Well, it turns out that's kind of where everybody went on their break to hide. They just wanted to get out of the office. They all went in there and hung out, right? So I was like, all right, if that's the case, went home, grabbed a Wi-Fi pineapple, came back to the shop, set it up, and we started to get a bunch of people joining our Wi-Fi, and we were able to do what's called man in the middle. So it's essentially intercepting the packet as it comes in from the laptop, inspecting it to see what's in it, and then handing that off. We were also using a package to do SSL stripping, so even secure connections to the internet, we were taking that connection in, inspecting it, re-encrypting it, and setting it back up to the internet. By doing that, we were able to see all of the credentials for all of the employees as their Outlook automatically logged back in. So they got online, their Outlook automatically reconnected, and we were able to capture that credential session. Similarly, when they were logging into their external Citrix, same thing. I was able to capture those credentials, and even though those credentials were encrypted, so I couldn't just see it on my local computer, I was able to take all of those hashes, send them back to another computer cluster with a piece of software running on it called Hashcat. And in about 24 hours, I had 80 valid sets of credentials, and I was able to do what I needed to do for my pen test. Again, that's a 19-year-old kid with a $75 piece of hardware sitting in a coffee shop for 5 hours, right? This is why IT cares so much. Now, today, there are a lot of good ways that we can defend against these types of devices. Windows and Mac have deployed just default some basic protections against them. But still, for the most part, there are ways that I'm able to still get you to join my hotspot without.
Yeah, but Cameron, when we're down in Houston and the oil and gas area of Houston, there's certain restaurants, they're serving coffee shops we're not allowed to even go into because of even if you walk in with your device or your laptop, they can connect automatically. So that's still going on though, isn't it? And certain high where the investment makes sense, or where they can steal IP from the top oil and gas companies in the world. That's still going on. It's not probably happening every day anymore, but there's still issues there, right?
No, I mean, 100% there are. And so that's why we were going to set the demonstration tonight. Unfortunately, Dallas North Lake kind of took that out of play. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where the likelihood of it happening is low unless you work for a company where it's worth targeting. It was a really great, it was a DEF CON talk, and then DEF CON is our big industry conference. It's where all the hackers from all over the world get together and we all share stories. And it also, there's an episode of Darknet Diaries, which is a podcast that talks about this. But yeah, there was in the middle of nowhere, there's a silicon manufacturing plant out there, that builds chips for a lot of different companies, a lot of different applications. And a pen testing group, so again, not me, just relaying the story. Pen testing group went out there. They were trying to get access to the building. They were working on stuff. And one of the guys that was a part of that pen testing group was a former KGB officer who was posted to Hong Kong. So fluent in Mandarin, fluent in English, fluent in Russian, very, very immersed in Chinese culture. And one night during this pen test, these guys go to this Chinese place, and they send Igor in to go check it out. And they're like, "Hey man, let us know if this is good." And he comes back and he's like, "Oh yeah, I looked at the menu. This place is awesome. You guys are gonna have a good time. Like, let's go in there." And they sit down, and the waiter comes over and says hello, and Igor replies in just fluent Mandarin. And so immediately the waiter's like, "Oh, okay," and they start going back and forth, and everybody at the table's like, "What the hell was that?" And he's like, "Well, because this guy knows that I spent a bunch of time in China, and obviously I speak the language, he's going to bring back the special menu, and we're going to eat off the special menu tonight." Everybody's like, "Yeah, like, awesome! Like, we're going to have real good food in bumfuck Idaho." Well, the guy brings the menu back, and at the top of the menu are black dumplings, which probably means nothing to anyone in here, but it is a very, very, very special delicacy in China. It is not something that you can find on most menus. It is not something you can find on any menu in the United States. And he looks at this menu and goes, "We have a problem." And they're like, "Why?" He's like, "Because you can't get this anywhere. This is really, even in China, this is really, really special. We have a problem." Well, it turns out that, in fact, they did have a problem. The CCP was running an intelligence operation out of that restaurant, because what was happening was, as Chinese scientists were coming to the US on H-1Bs, going to work for this chip manufacturing company, and then of course eating at this restaurant, they were being, if you could speak the language and if you could order off the special menu, they then got intercepted by an agent who basically was like, "Here's the deal, your family's in China, you're here, you're either going to do espionage for us, you're either going to steal all the secrets from the chip manufacturer and funnel them to us, or basically we're going to do things to your family." So the government got involved in that, they got kicked out, and of course good things came from it. But yeah, I mean, it's absolutely, it's real world, it's still something that happens today, and it is why, if you are on your corporate laptop in a place that is got unsecured wireless, you definitely need to be on a VPN. If you are in a place on your phone that has unsecured wireless, unless you really need Wi-Fi, just stay on cellular. Turn your Wi-Fi off, just stay on your phone. And if you're on your personal device, there are multiple good services. Surfshark and NordVPN are not two of those services, regardless of what podcasts or YouTube might have you think. But there are good services that will allow you to have some privacy in these locations. Okay, so how do I keep myself and my kids safe, right? So as Brian mentioned, when we do these talks, the first two questions that I always get is, number one, can you hack my wife's Facebook? Not legally. And number two is, how do I keep my kids safe? So the first thing that we talk about is limiting social media. And I know in 2022, asking anyone under the age of 30 to limit their engagement with social media, they'd rather just put a pistol in their mouth. But the reality is, when as a penetration tester, as an attacker, one of the first things that I do when I'm trying to figure out how to get at someone, how to phish someone, is I'm going to look at their social media. I'm going to find their interests. I'm going to do an OSINT search. I'm going to look for their phone number and their email, and then I'm going to start looking for all the services that we know about that they've signed up for with that phone number and that email. So I can start to build a profile on who you are, what you like. If you look at my Instagram for 10 seconds, you're going to find out that I like whiskey, I like food, and I like guns. Right? It's pretty easy. Here's your whiskey. Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it. So if someone's coming after me, right? Well, tell me about a shooting event that's going to end with a whiskey tasting, and you probably get me to respond to your email, right? Same thing. If I'm trying to figure out how to gain access to your building, how many of your interns or how many of your junior people, when they started on their first day, they put up a LinkedIn post that had their badge on it? Right? Well, well, now I've got a perfect picture of your badge, and it's from this year. So even if you've changed it in the last couple of years, I can take an ID card and I can make a badge real fast, right? So those are things that we look at. Other things, again, back to the hacktivism piece, right? How many of you may have put up a post in the last 4 years, for or against the president? I don't really care what side you stand on. That someone who is a competitor might not like and might try to use against you, right? So the big thing is, with your Instagram, keep it private. With your Facebook, limit your posts, limit everything to friends and family only, right? Keep these things out. For your kids, your Snapchat, right, has active location, right? Because everybody's got to know where everybody else is right now. It's the FOMO thing. Set it to ghost, right? Having a tracking device in your pocket is probably one of the worst things we ever did. And the fact that my generation made it popular is even worse. But those are some basic things that you can do just on the social media front to keep things interesting. The other thing that I do when I'm actively in a penetration test is I will look at your personal Instagram because I want to know when you're out of the country. I want to know when you and your family are skiing. I want to know when you and your family are not looking at your corporate email, because that is the perfect time for me to get in there and do whatever I want. If I end up locking out your account, or if I change your password or anything like that, you're not going to notice because you're 100 feet down with a scoop tank on your back, right? So those are other reasons why posting publicly to social media is not a great plan. The second thing is to use a reputation service. Brand yourself is my preference. It's also Mark Cuban's preference. He uses it himself and has money invested in it. But not only does that do things like remove your data from all of the public sites, if you've ever heard of like Spokio or People Search US or Ben Verified or anything like that, it goes through about 150 different data brokers and automatically removes your data, and anytime they re-add it, Ben Verified goes back in and pulls it back down. So when we talk about identity theft, when we talk about being able to validate things, so if I get a piece of information about you, I'm probably going to go to one of those services, I'm going to try to validate that. If you're not in their database, it makes it harder for me to validate those things. The other thing that Ben Verified does is it helps with personal reputation management. It'll go through your social media. It'll untag you in photos that are unflattering. It will bring up statuses that might be problematic and ask if you want to delete them or hide them or things like that. It will go through Google search. So if you Google Cameron Joyce, Frisco, Texas, the first 5 or 6 results, you're going to find my LinkedIn, you're going to find my blog, you're going to find my Credly, you're going to find some stuff from Datrium that I talked about, some stuff from Storage Review that I was quoted in, and then about the 7th thing that you're going to find is Oriana K. Kalani Joyce versus Cameron Joyce and the dissolution of marriage. Because I got divorced a couple years ago, right? I can't hide Collin County's court records, but I can suppress them. And so that's one of the things that Ben Verified can do. They can do that for your whole family. They have a family package. You put all your name, your spouse's name, all your kid's name in there. They'll take care of you. It's a little spendy, so if the recession has you on a budget, Delete Me is a really, really good option. I also use Delete Me. It's got a couple databases that Ben Verified doesn't have. It's about $100 a year, and it does the same thing. It deletes your records from all the People Search databases. What it does not do, however, is it doesn't do that reputation management. It doesn't look through your social media. It doesn't look through Google to try to find results. The next thing is, of course, stay away from phishing. This is really more for your kids, right? But when we talk about social media, okay, one of the dumbest things that I've seen people do in a long time, and again, when you think about it as an adult, you're like, why would anyone do this? But the kids got really excited about this. There was a filter on TikTok that acts like the Harry Potter universe. So you take a picture, or you take a video of a static picture, and it animates the picture, much like Harry Potter. So everybody was saying, do this with your driver's license. Why would you do that? But there's millions of videos of people posting their driver's license with this filter on it, going, wow, isn't this so cool? Well, yeah, it is so cool. Now I've got your driver's license, right? They did it a few years ago with credit cards, right? That was a big thing on Facebook for a while because Capital One and Bank of America, a couple others, were doing the whole upload any image. You can have anything you want on your credit card. So people were posting their brand new credit card with their cool image on it with the entire number and CVV and everything accessible, right? Come on, guys, like be smart about this. So that's kind of the first thing, right, that we want to go through. The next thing is, of course, don't respond to those surveys of, where did you go to school? What was your first car? What was your first boyfriend's name and all that crap? What these are doing, it's fun to share that information with your friends and see their responses and all that. But what this is doing is this is answering common security questions. And there's a lot of bots out there that will start these Facebook chain mails and then they'll scrape all the responses out of the Facebook chain mails so that guys like me can buy those responses on the dark web, and now if I need to get into your account, I have your security questions. It's another great reason to obfuscate security questions, but still, this is a really, it's one of those things. It seems like harmless fun. It's not. Another really common one right now, this is TikTok and YouTube are kind of victim to this. It's the DMCA takedown request. So you'll get an email from someone basically saying, hey, your recent post has content in it that is copywritten, and if you don't click this link and pay us $500, we're going to call the cops on you. Okay? Here's the reality of how DMCA works. They take the stuff down, they don't contact you. They just take the post down, right? So when you're talking to your kids about that, basically just let them know, like, hey, you know what? If you get that email, go check the post, right? If it's still up, then this is fake. Delete the email. And if you don't respond to the email, then we'll deal with the cops when they call them. But the reality is, it's fake. It's someone who's trying to get not only $500 out of you, the $500 is nice, but what they're really trying to get out of you is your credit card information, right? So just stay away from that. And then the last thing is the blue check. Everybody wants to be an influencer. Everybody wants to be verified. Until Elon puts in his new thing for Twitter, no one is selling blue checks. It is much like an American Express Centurion card. You get invited, you can't apply. Verified accounts are the same way. You cannot pay any amount of money to get verified. All of those are an invite process. Again, it's another scam to try to get some money out of you. One of the things about the scams is that in both of those cases, that initial amount of money is gone. You can try to claim fraud on it, and depending on how you paid for it, you might get that money back. But the reality is that you paid for a service, and yes, that service was never delivered, but you paid for the service. No one stole that money from you. You willingly clicked the link and put in your information. So just things to talk about. The last thing are love scams. And this is something that you equally need to talk about with your elderly parents as you do your teenage kids. Because again, the FBI stats say that those are the two groups of people that are being targeted by this. The first thing to remember about these love scams, don't ever send naked pictures of yourself to anyone you've never met in person. If you've never seen that person naked, don't send naked pictures. And more than that, if you're going to send naked pictures, make sure that your face isn't in them. If you got an identifying tattoo or birthmark or something, make sure that that's edited out too. Don't give them any ammunition. The other thing, since we're all men in here, you can remind your sons. Everyone in this room right now would probably love a naked picture from their wife. Your wife does not want a naked picture from you. And that's a pretty good reminder to your son. Everybody likes movies. No one likes naked men. So that's the first thing. The second thing, do not send money to people that you have never met. One of the big scams that targets the elderly, they'll build up trust, they'll build up a relationship. A lot of these guys claim they work in oil and gas, they work offshore, they've got jobs that take them to kind of remote places in the world. And then they'll be like, oh man, I got hurt, or oh, something happened, I need to come back to the United States, but my bank account's frozen, or my credit card's at its limit, and I don't have the money to buy a plane ticket. Okay, if you're there for work, if you're on an oil rig, right, if you're out in the ocean and you're on an oil rig, the company will fly you back on a helicopter. You got there on the company helicopter, they're going to fly you back on the company helicopter, right? So that's another place where, again, if you've never met this person in real life, there is no reason to be sending them money. And then, of course, The last thing to remember, and again, a good thing to remind your son of, is that unsolicited nudity pictures in the state of Texas are illegal. It's a felony. So don't be sending those. Similarly, for your daughters, just because she's 16 and she's got a 16-year-old boyfriend, that is still manufacturing, distribution, child pornography. Don't send the pictures, right? Just keep them out. If your kids are getting blackmailed, if you're getting blackmailed, right? If you get that text message or that email or that Facebook message or the WhatsApp that says, hey, I know you were on an adult website, I hacked your phone, I turned on your camera, I've got a video of you doing your business, I'm going to send it to everybody in your contacts. If you don't pay me $5,000, they didn't get that video, so delete the text message. But again, that's revenge porn. That is illegal at a federal level. And again, take the pictures, contact the cops if you want to, block the number. There's nothing they're going to do about it. So those are the big things. You know, when we talk about phishing, when we talk about the tactics that I use to get information tactics I use to get information out of people, there's always an element of urgency. There's always an element of shame and an element of urgency. I caught you doing something wrong. You need to make this right quick, or I'm going to ruin your life. The reality is, it's not going to happen. Okay, so just take a breath, take a step back. Just understand that they're trying to con you. And in most cases, if you don't respond right away, and especially after they start threatening, oh, you know, they got screenshots loaded up, I'm sending these to people, they're not. Okay. Just take a step back, calm down, it's gonna be okay. So that's everything that I got. I don't know if we got questions.
Yeah, let's open up for just a few questions. We're at the time limit that Nathan gave, but one thing to note, I mentioned he did this for a group of CEOs a month and a half ago. There's 12 bullets on there, roughly. 8 of those are new. So if Nathan invites us back 2 months from now, this list will have changed. If he invites us back in March, it will have. So it's important, obviously, to stay on top of this. And obviously, these tactics will change because as Cameron educates you and you educate your son or daughter, they're going to become aware of that, and the tactic has to obviously evolve and change. So it's important to stay in front of this and on top of that. And maybe, Cameron, if you get a question on that, what's the best way to stay in the know or in the loop in regards to some of this stuff, other than just watching some of the stuff? So I'll get a question back here and I'll bring it up.
Sounds good.
All right, so do you see any particular industries that are targeted? Because me personally, I'm a guy, I do investing and stuff like that. It's interesting. My wife is a physician. I see her IT network and how it works, and this is utterly terrifying.
Yeah.
So what do you do? Do you see any particular industries that are targeted?
Yeah, top 3, financial, legal, and medical. Without any question. Financial is pretty easy, that's where the money is. Medical, to your point, it's just a shit show. And the problem with medical is that patient care dollars are always number 1. So if what you're spending money on is not directly linked to patient care, it's pulling teeth to get that money. And then lastly, unfortunately on the IT side, the salaries aren't that good. It's very much the same as state, local, and education. The salaries just really aren't good. You have to have someone who has a reason to want to be there, and so their talent, unfortunately, is not stable. Yes, sir?
I work in IT, and I've seen a real spike in emails where it's like the person sending an email to the same person.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I know it's been around for years and years, and it's like, you can't do anything about it, really.
Mm-hmm.
It's, just something that's out there.
Yep.
So, I mean, is there another way that you can sort that out, or, I mean,
yeah,
I've looked and looked and looked, and I cannot figure out another way to,
attack that.
Yeah, to stop it. It's like, okay, you got an email from yourself.
Yeah.
That says, I've got pictures of you or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, that's stupid. Why do you care about it? But I still have customers that are like, this person's like, I sent you another email.
Yep.
So what are your recommendations on something like that?
Yeah, so you and I can have a much longer conversation about this.
Yeah, based on time, so I do want to take the technical questions offline unless you have a quick 30-second.
Yeah.
And then we'll visit with him afterwards and obviously redirect him to White Rock. But go for that and just keep in mind time. So.
Yeah, there's two really fast things you can do. One is around your SMTP mail flow rules and basically filtering out those types of messages that appear to be loopback, even though they're not. That's one. The other, both Mimecast and Proofpoint have really good protection against those exact type of emails. So that's usually where we recommend. But yeah, again, you, me, and Nathan should get together and have a much longer conversation about what you got today and how we can fix that.
So people spend $30 a month, $50 a month on a water system per house. So if you had $500 to tell us to go spend as head of the household on cybersecurity, VPN, YubiKey, what should we spend money on? You can't be a stockholder. Well,
nope. No, that's fine. No, so I'll tell you.
That's a great question right there.
No, it really is.
Thanks.
I'll tell you exactly what my setup is. Brand yourself for $350 a year. LastPass family. So LastPass, for those that don't know, it's a password manager. So every time you create a new account, it'll automatically create a strong password for you. It stores all those passwords so that you don't have to remember them. You can put the app on your phone. It'll autofill on your phone as well, so you don't have to be copy and paste. It's very, very easy to use. On the kind of sad side for estate planning, there's a way to give your children or whoever is the executive of your estate access to it so that we've got all your passwords in case something happens to you. That's about $100 a year for the family license. So that's $450 right there. The last $50 I would go spend on a Raspberry Pi, and I would put a piece of software on there. Yeah, I would. Piece of software on there called Pi-hole, P-I-H-O-L-E. What that does is it's ad blocking for your entire home Wi-Fi network. The software is free, the hardware is not, but if you got like an old laptop or something, you can put it on there. It's very easy to set up. And the idea behind that is that a lot of those spam ads that have viruses in them and all that get blocked, so that you don't even have the opportunity to click them, and it also limits the online tracking. So
does that work for cell phones too?
Works for everything. As long as the device is on your Wi-Fi network, it covers everything. So, I mean, for instance, like my biggest offender on my home network is my Peloton bike. Like that thing is always trying to call home, and so it's my #1 device that's blocked in Pi-hole. But there's a really good on Reddit. There's a really good beginner's guide on how to set that up. The only warning I will give you on that or any similar service, there's another one from Cisco called Cisco Umbrella. They have a free tier that you can use at home. Similarly, you can use it as an agent, or you can use it on your Wi-Fi. But with all of these, the thing that your wife is going to get pissed off about is that when she searches on Google for whatever, and those recommendations across the top of all the stores, when you click those links, because those are Google tracked ads, those get redirected to the garbage. And so she's like, why can't I shop anymore? And you're like, because I don't want you
So
to.
that's a great question. First time he's ever got that one.
Yeah.
That's a great answer. So good job, Cameron.
I have so many questions, but I'm only going to ask two. The first one's a yes/no.
Yes.
So the brand reputation services, are the use of those the reason why a majority of ultra high net worth families and individuals just basically do not exist on the internet, even the ones who are very prominent?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome, thank you. And then I have a question. You spoke earlier about cryptocurrency. One of the largest banks in the world recently said that they're going to start custodying crypto assets on their platform. And I find that very interesting in that cryptocurrency is completely decentralized. It technically is custodied on the blockchain.
Yep.
So if an institution is going to custody those assets,
Yep.
how are they not incredibly vulnerable to cyber attacks, despite the fact they have the largest cybersecurity measures in place of any institution probably in the world?
Yeah. The answer is that they're lying. They are incredibly vulnerable. I mean, I got an offer last year to go work with the largest clearing bank in the United States to do exactly that, to head up their Web3 infrastructure and basically prevent anybody from ever being able to steal those wallets, steal those funds. With the technology that exists today, with the tool sets that are available today around that, it's an impossible task. There's a lot of things that we can do to make it safer. The reality is that we're so infantile in this industry. 5 years ago, hardware wallets were our only option. Now we've got, then it was software wallets, now it's third-party exchanges, now it's banks, now and it's getting bigger and bigger. Unfortunately, even though you got a lot of really smart people working on the problem, the reality is at the end of the day that a crypto asset, basically whether it's a non-fungible token or a non-backed asset that is ledgered by blockchain, it's like a bearer bond. The person who physically has it is the owner, and I can't say that you're not. I can look through the ledger of blockchain and see that it was moved between wallets, but I can't say for certain who owns those wallets. There are ways to find out, but again, it's not like doing like an ACH where I'm going from institution to institution, and there's a lot of measures in place to make sure that things are going to the right places and that everything is all sorted. And that is a big part of why I personally, while I play with blockchain and while I've played with cryptocurrency and I've mined cryptocurrency and all that, I still strongly recommend that unless you need to hide assets from a person, an entity, or a government, that crypto is not ready to be used in the way that people are using it today. And so yeah, so unless you go launder some drug money or hide stuff from your soon-to-be ex, or get money out of Russia or China, crypto is still an infantile place.
It's not insured.
And that's the other big thing. I mean, even through the banks, it's not FDIC insured. Your $250,000 CD is your $4 million crypto wallet is not. So
this is a cybersecurity discussion, not a financial discussion.
I could talk about both. I mean,
I know you got opinions on all of it. So didn't you?
I had a question about texts. I've noticed recently I've gotten more texts that basically, sound, and my initial reaction is to say, hey, you've got the wrong person, and I've stopped responding to them. Yep. But a lot of them will start off with, hi friend, or hi Mary, are you going to, and I think where I'm at right now is I just report them as spam. Yep. and don't respond to them. What are they trying to get? Is that a phishing situation where they're trying to just open up a conversation?
Yeah, so in a couple places, great question. So it's a couple different things. One is phishing, absolutely. Another can be validation. So when we do SMS spoofing, which is a way that I, as an attacker, essentially can intercept your text messages from the carrier. A way that I will test that is to send essentially a phony text. To send a text to you, I can watch it get delivered, it comes back to my phone, so now I'm essentially getting double text every time I talk to you. But it lets me know that, hey, I have a valid connection, I have a valid source here. And now, for instance, when you log into Chase Bank and they text you your one-time code, that attacker now can also see that, right? So when they go to log in and they get that one-time code, they don't need you to forward it to them. They don't need to fish it out of you. They've got it right there on their phone. So that is a big problem. Verizon and T-Mobile customers, that is a bigger problem for you. AT&T customers, not so much. Yeah.
Great question. One more question. Who's got the best question? No, it's not true.
Let's say you can ask me later.
You get the notification your identity has been stolen.
Yep.
What now? Because that happened to us. We're like, what do? We went to DPD. DPD's like, oh yeah, great, we'll do a case. I mean, so okay, identity's been stolen. Yep. What now?
Put your head between your knees and cry.
Hang on, Patrick wants to answer that question, and then he wants to ask a question.
I can tell you, you're screwed. I've been there. But the bigger question is, there's no answer to that. I can walk you through all that.
Yeah.
The bigger question is how to prevent that.
Yeah.
What is the best credit identity protection if you know of one?
Yeah.
In case anybody didn't know, someone stole my identity and my credit information and bought a Corvette and a Mercedes in one weekend. It's not a good situation.
So now we know Patrick's got great credit.
Patrick had great. He had great credit for the weekend, and then Monday morning it was not so great. So, but he's fixed that since then. So, but I think this goes hand in hand with the final question.
It does. So the first answer is, and again, Patrick knows, nobody's on your side. The cops don't care because they don't look at cybercrime as interesting. They want to go out and they want to bust drugs and crack down on gangsters and all that stuff, right? The cops don't care. And in a lot of cases, their cybercrime divisions are incredibly underfunded, and they don't have the resources even if they wanted to. But you gotta have a police case. You gotta have an open investigation into identity management, because when you go to the credit bureaus to dispute these accounts, you have to have an open investigation. Otherwise, they won't remove your stuff. So that's the first thing, right? Is you got to go to the cops. You got to open an account. Getting a new license, maybe that'll help. Not usually, because the other problem is DPS doesn't change our license numbers. Even if we tell them that we've had our identity stolen, we'll just give you a new license. It's stupid, but it is what it is. Changing your credit cards, it's not going to help. They didn't use your credit card to do their nefarious act. They used information they already had on you. So the question is, how do I protect myself? Credit monitoring is good, but credit monitoring is after the fact. You get that notification after they are sitting in the finance office at Mercedes-Benz Plano with the keys being slid over the desk, and you're getting that email saying, hey, someone jacked my stuff, right? So credit monitoring is good. I use a service called Credit Secure. Experian has a pretty decent service as part of their freecreditreport.com suite. It's about $20 a month. But the reality is, when it comes to credit monitoring, is that it really doesn't help. It's a very reactionary thing. That's where the identity reputation management services like Brand Yourself are really going to come into play. Because if I can't find that information about you on the internet to begin with, then I can't use that information about you when it actually comes time to steal your identity. So it really starts with making sure that stuff gets off. Now, here's one thing that I will say, because there are some services out there that tell you that they do dark web takedowns. That is like asking the crack dealer to stop selling to your addict uncle. Okay? They're not going to do it. They're going to take your money, and then they're going to keep selling. It's the same thing with the dark web takedown stuff. They will take your money, and they will tell you that they removed your information. The reality is that you have no way to validate it, and so they kind of get away with that. It's a little bit of a scam, but that is one thing to look out for, is that if it is truly a dark web dump, your data's out there.
As a sales guy, let me just wrap it all up here. So, great question. So, choose who you do business with. Choose who you give your information to. Choose who you fill out all those surveys or all that information when you buy a new deer stand or whatever you're doing, Patrick. And when they ask for every bit of information, make those choices. And this all comes back to, we're trying to protect corporate America. Corporate America is trying to protect their customers. There's a flow or effect there, and you have to decide who you do business with. And that was a big part of his discussion. Was a lot of organizations and entities are not interested in that piece of it, and you have to make those decisions. Now I know about T-Mobile, but now T-Mobile is one of the more secure environments in the world, but because they had to pay the price and penalty for it. So a big part of it is when you're filling out those information, you're making a purchase online, it's making those decisions. And I just bought a new windshield, for the Polaris, and there were 17 websites that could sell it to me for certain. I had to purposely choose one that was most reputable, and I paid a higher price, but I felt more confident about where the data, the credit card information that I was sending through. If anything's asking you for a social security number or your children's or personal, some of the content that Cameron mentioned, your high school you attended, your first whatever, that stuff you can't fill it out, and you have to choose to do business elsewhere or go a different route. So.
That is last tangent. Just one thing for those of you in the audience that are gun people, and you have a CHL, and you go to buy a new firearm, you filled out your 4473, which is that lovely ATF form that we all have to fill out when we buy a gun. It will get to a point where it will ask you if you have a social security number or an EIN. Okay? If you have a CHL, do not fill out that box. Your CHL acts in place of that. If you don't, it's another great reason that even though we do have constitutional carry in Texas, that you should have a CHL anyway. But that is, again, it's another place where now a gun store does not have your social security number on a piece of paper that is untracked, sitting in a filing cabinet, available for anybody to look at. And that's another big thing that I like to tell people is that, again, we're all filling out a federal form, and we just fill the boxes in because we're good law-abiding citizens. But if you have CHL, do not fill that box out.
Yeah, it's come to the point where, so I coach soccer and coach a couple other things where I have a birth date now that is not my birthday, but it's the one I put in all the entry forms. So I've made up, and it caused a few problems, along the way when I had to show an ID eventually. But I added a day or a month or a year to my actual birthday, and that was and I know that one, to where whatever website, and it's requiring it to make the accept or submit the final purchase. They don't need my birthday, but I have to do that to complete it. Though, even if you have to play those games and play those tactics, to me, those things are worth it because it's all about this group of data has this information on you, this group has this, and if it doesn't make sense or it doesn't correlate all of it, they're going to move to the next guy, and we're all competing against each other for the data that they can access. And if mine's the easiest one to get, they're the one that are going to use my data out of all of you guys, and they're going to leverage that and make money off of that or whatever they can. So you just got to be, it's like, you got to be faster than the next guy when the bear's chasing you or whatever. Just be better than the next guy on cyber hygiene, and you're probably going to be okay because they're obviously going after the low-hanging fruit. Cameron told a pretty morbid example. That's low-hanging fruit, and that's what they're trying to accomplish. That's how they return the profits, and it's all obviously dollars. So,
all right, can we get our guys? Before we walk away, we got a small little gift for you to remember your time with the Shakes Club tonight. Appreciate y'all being here. I think we all feel a little bit smarter and maybe a little bit more nervous. But that was certainly entertaining. So thank you guys again. Appreciate y'all all being here tonight, and I hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving break. And cheers, gentlemen. Grab another drink or two and enjoy your evening.